All right, compensatory repair process. All right, let's just do 15. Hmm. All right, compensatory repair process. Some of the basic and correct things to do when seeking to repair the damage to non-white people caused and or promoted by the establishment, maintenance, expansion, and or refinement of the system of white supremacy racism are as follows. 1. Maybe it won't go anywhere. 1. Find the truth about the harm done to non-white people as the direct and indirect result of the establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement of the system of white supremacy. 2. Replace the system of white supremacy racism with the system of justice, balance between people, by using a compensatory counter-racist code of thought, speech, and action that is specifically designed to repair all the damage done to non-white people as a direct or indirect result of the system of white supremacy. 3. Continue the repair process until there is no longer any damage to be repaired and compensated for. That pertains to all areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, counterwar. 4. As a major part of the compensatory repair process, speak and act to guarantee correct and constructive education, housing, transportation, and health care to each individual non-white person who is or has been directly or indirectly victimized by the system of white supremacy. Continue to guarantee that these necessities are provided until all persons so victimized are constructively self supported in all areas of activity until they are no longer able to be self supporting or until they die. Special compensatory notice. To those who have shown an interest in the codified process of replacing the system of white supremacy racism with the system of justice, balance between people, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept is an open air view of problem solving addressed to individual persons only. Under the code, no non-white person is allowed to be so-called structurally associated with anything except the total fluidity of the concept itself as addressed to the individual person united with codified logic. There is no so-called unity of person to person. The entire code functions through the thought, speech, and or actions of individual victims of racism, white supremacy only. Of individual, never through any so-called group. The concept is never, ever associated with any so-called group, organization, or so-called personal leadership. The only structural association that any person can have is the words written or spoken about. The concept, books, papers, exchange of views, etc. The reason for this is for greater clarity and focus by the individual person who is duty bound to stand by his or her work. This means, presumably, that each individual person has the same duty to stand by his or her work only and only as an individual person. This indicates that the concept applies to each individual person when he or she is functioning in unity with constructive logic and is identified as being associated with constructive logic, not with people, groups of people, or with scattered, or coordinated personalities. There is no identification by association, guilt by association, or so-called credit by association with any person. This helps to promote honesty and helps to eliminate confusion about who is doing what, when, where, why, and how, and for what ultimate purpose. This also prevents the white supremacist racists from doing what they usually do. Act either for or against so-called group labels or group leaders. There are none. There's only a concept in constant motion. The individual unites with constructive logic. Information guide for compensatory thought, speech, and or action. Area 1, economics. The following pages present suggestions that pertain to what a victim of racism, non-white person, should or should not choose to do in the first area of people activity. Each person should choose to speak and or act according to one or more of the suggestions presented, but only if he or she decides to do so. No person should speak and or act according to any suggestion presented wherein herein unless he or she has judged that the suggestion should that she that the suggestion chosen is of current or correct value in helping to eliminate racism, white supremacy, and or in helping to better justice. It is important to know and understand that one or more suggestions selected from one major area of people activity should be used in constructive combination with one or more suggestions selected from other major areas of people activity. If an individual chooses to utilize any suggestion presented herein, he or she should do so in a manner and at a specific time and specific place that will produce the most constructive results in the revelation of truth and or the production of justice or correctness. Economics means the correct distribution of and balance between all animals, persons, places, plants, things, etc. Economics, in the correct sense, is the sum total of all the thought, speech, and or action used to produce maximum efficiency in revealing truth in a manner that promotes the establishment of justice and correctness in all areas of activity. Economics also means using all things, thoughts, speech, and or action with maximum efficiency with the objective of eliminating racism, white supremacy. Economics does not mean simply acquiring, saving, or spending money. Economics is not a tool of money. Money is a tool of economics. Economics is the result of people speaking and acting effectively in the production of justice and correctness. It is not simply how money is handled that determines economics. It is a matter of how everything is handled and to what end. Economics pertains to how all time and energy is used. In order for a person who is a victim of racism, white supremacy to practice economics, that person must speak and act to produce justice and correctness in the sum total of everything that he or she says or does. This includes the use of time and energy, the consumption of food and drink, sexual intercourse and or thoughts of sexual intercourse, the use of music, the manner or and use of labor, etc. If racism, white supremacy, is the greatest and most powerful force against the production of justice, balance between people, and if justice is necessary in order to produce peace, then there is reason to believe that it is the duty of every person in the known universe to use all of his or her time and energy each and every day to end racism, and that justice and peace can be produced. During the existence of racism, this is the correct way to think of economics, time and energy. At the end of each day, measure the value of your accomplishments only by how effective you were in saying or doing something proved to be useful in helping to end white supremacy, racism, and or in helping to produce justice, balance between people. As long as white supremacy exists, use all of your time and energy doing the following, and do not willfully make or maintain contact with other persons except for the following purposes. 1. Producing, building, repairing, improving, and or cleaning those things that have constructive value and using them for constructive purposes only. 2. Studying, writing, asking questions, and or exchanging views with others about all aspects of how to eliminate racism and how to produce justice in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war counterwar. 3. Eating and sleeping correctly and only as necessary. 4. Engaging in sexual intercourse no more than two times every 7 days, and using a minimum of time and resources in association with such engagements. Explanation. These suggestions are the 4 basic and correct ways for a victim of white supremacy, non-white person, to use his or her time or energy in a manner that is not too restrictive and at the same time economically constructive. If each victim of racism would limit all of his or her activities to no more than the aforementioned, most of his or her problems would be greatly minimized in a very short amount of time. Victims of racism who are serious about eliminating racism, white supremacy, and or who are serious about producing justice cannot afford to engage in any activities other than the aforementioned. The voluntary and constructive use of time and or energy by substantial numbers of the victims of racism would be a very damaging effect on the continued practice of racism, white supremacy. Racism could continue to exist for a while, but only with great difficulty. A great improvement in the production of justice would be immediately evident. At the same time, each victim of racism would quickly become a stronger and greatly improved person. Victims of racism would no longer, with relative ease, be sidetracked into and or burdened with activities that are at best useless rituals and or destructive fads. By using time and energy in accordance with the aforementioned suggestions, victims of racism victims of racism would eliminate doing those non-constructive and mostly non-satisfying things that usually are the production of indoctrination and or long-standing habit. Their overall function as constructively their overall function as constructively progressive persons would be greatly simplified. Thought, speech, and action would be much healthier, and characterized by less confusion, frustration, and clutter. Yep. All right. Okay, question 5. Question 15. Should black Americans practice socioeconomics as a team? Group-based socioeconomics is essential for success within our race-based competitive society, in which blacks are overburdened by poverty and powerlessness. Wealth and power follow numerical dominance, and in our society, the majority wins. Therefore, blacks must ethno-aggregate or pool as great a number of resources as they can, whatever the category, consumer dollars, votes, economics, and work together as a team. Remember, racism is the power of one group, whites, to control the lives and opportunities of another group, blacks. The word racism comes from the economics of slavery. The economic and social injustices racism imposed on blacks because of their skin color are now institutionalized. Blacks must work together as a socioeconomic team. Although the historical social construct consigned blacks to the lowest levels in society, they have a chance to win if they organize into a functioning socioeconomic team totally committed to gaining group political and wealth power, just as whites and other groups have done for centuries. But but there are obstacles. Contrary to the socioeconomic practices of other groups, many members of the black race do not want to play as a team. Too many prefer to support others' teams rather than their own team. They are adverse to their own skin color uniform. There are also some blacks who take pride in denigrating and sabotaging efforts of conscious blacks who struggle to socioeconomically elevate the black race. Such inappropriate behaviors impede blacks from winning a team based competition or even getting scores on the socioeconomic scoreboard. In a race based society, team playing is essential, and the groups with the best chances of winning will be those that keep the most control over their own fate and fulfill their self-interest first. From this country's very founding, whites have prospered militarily, politically, economically, educationally, and racially because their team spirit empowered them. Whiteness is a unifying concept defined by the social construct as the race that holds group based power that can be used over outgroups like blacks and Native Americans. The central purpose of the social construct on race was to enrich only members of the white team with wealth and power. The white team members were classified as first-class citizens. Blacks were classified first as property, later as second-class citizens, and lastly as a group that refuses to play as a team. Although whites have historically operated as a skin color team, they have had an underlying foreboding that one day blacks might wake up and also begin playing as a race based team. The racial social construct required that whites operate as a team for mutual tangible and intangible benefits. Whites as a team established the slave trade. Whites as a team established the slave trade, crafted the nation's founding documents, maintained black subordination and Jim Crow segregation. Whites denied and controlled black education and kept blacks illiterate for centuries by design, oversaw the legal and extra legal organizations that abused and criminalized blacks, regulated the political system, Wall Street stock markets, nearly all major businesses, the media, real estate, and international affairs as the white team. The white code of conduct was so powerful that blacks could never be any more nor any less than what the white society needed or wanted blacks to be. Consequently, whites play as a team with an accountability code of with an accountability code of conduct. To the contrary, blacks play as individuals and with uneven team spirit and no code of conduct. As a result, blacks have yet to win a game, whether they compete against gender, ethnic, or simply poor white groups who play as teams. Knowing that power and wealth tends to follow the numbers, whites generally prefer to interact with blacks by keeping them as non-threatening, non-competitive, as a non-threatening, non-competitive minority. As an example, when the prospects of the integration of professional sports arose, whites were fearful of integrating existing professional black baseball, basketball, and football teams into the existing white professional leagues. The social integration process meant black sports teams were required to disappear, to disband, and to release hundreds of the best players in the sports world so that white players could dominate and their teams could hire one or two black players. Politics offers another example. White fear of blacks as a team permeated major political decisions. According to a national poll, on the eve of the Civil War, 98% of whites were fearful of and opposed freeing black slaves. After the Civil War, whites in the North did not want ex slaves to migrate north. A century later, 75% of white Americans were still opposed to and felt blacks were moving too quickly into social integration. Recently, in 2010, national opinion and public attitude polls indicated that 63% of whites and other groups had negative feelings about blacks and they did not like and did not want to be around blacks. While they are while there are black white friendships on an individual basis, the majority of whites oppose and are fearful of advances by blacks as a group. Liberals generally conceive of progress in race relations as the one-to-one assimilation of deserving black individuals. However, in a race-based society, wealth and power align with the numbers and follow the social construct on race. While whites venerate individualism, they play as a team. The individual accomplishments contribute to the power and influence of the white team. Blacks, on the other hand, do not play as a team. Individualism does not work for them in the same way it does for whites and other groups. The social construct on race is historically restrictive. It allows blacks to benefit only individually as an exception. It will not allow individual black accomplishments to lift the group out of its bottom status. Blacks were enslaved, impoverished, and made powerless as a group. Therefore, individual black accomplishments, while important, do not make it easier for the group to compete in the marketplace, the political arena, or any other place in which group solidarity is strength. Individual black accomplishments tend to stay just that. The benefits do not accrue to the group. Now is now is an opportune time for blacks to change that social construct on race and to choose a new path in order to achieve a new outcome, one of prosperity and unity. They must acknowledge their history and make their own sustained effort to chart a new reality for themselves and their children. That was the intent of Powernomics, the national plan to empower Black America, to offer a guide to purposeful change based on group-based strengths and competitive advantages. Immigrant groups such as Asians, Hispanics, and Arabs are outgroups for a short time. They demonstrate socioeconomic teamwork in the way they link their businesses to their physical communities and to a sense of community. It is beneficial for blacks who wish to build a strong, competitive team to study the success of immigrant groups who practice nationalism and cooperative economics and model a number of useful practices that blacks could use to create a new social construct and build a socioeconomic team. To build a socioeconomic team, the following strategies could be useful to blacks. 1. Think of your group as a nation within a nation. 2. Reduce consumption of goods and services produced and sold by competing groups and increase spending with black-owned businesses. 3. Build businesses and industries around competitive advantages of the group. For example, blacks are the only source of black hair. Therefore, their team should control the entire black hair care industry from manufacturing to salon and other retail sales. Similarly, blacks should have vertical control of all music they create, from production, distribution, to the music halls of fame. All right. And for increase individual savings and create group saving mechanisms such as investment clubs and SUSs, money pools, or informal loan clubs common in the Caribbean and Asian countries. Okay, pooling resources and dominating in business. Wherever you dominate in population or consumer spending patterns are Powernomics principles that can guide Black America to success as a socioeconomic team. It is the only way that Black America can work within the realities of racism and transform the historical economic disadvantages of being black into advantages.